He chose a mandate, it wouldn't bother you.
I think it's a terrific idea. I think you're going to find, when it's all said and done, after all these states that are the laboratories of democracy get their chance to try their own plans, that those who follow the path that we pursued will find it's the best path. And we'll end up with a nation that's taken a mandate.
I think it's great that the President of the United States has a date night with his wife. I think it's very, very important for him. He's a role model. He's a role model in particular, whether he likes it or not, in the African-American community. And you have an African-American community, particularly in the poor inner city areas. We're looking at out-of-wedlock birth rates, in 3/4 to 75% of children being born out of wedlock. Marriage is an institution that's a bridge too far for too many African-American women and is not desirable among African-American males. Here we have a President of the United States who's saying marriage is cool, marriage is something that you do, you have respect for your wife, and you treat her with the respect and dignity she deserves, and she's part of this team.
We have a duty, not just to the living, but to those who came and died before us, and to the generations yet to be born. Our freedom was purchased by millions of men, now long forgotten throughout history, who charged the bayonets, and they charged the cannons. They knew they were going to die, but it was worth it for them, sacrificing for future generations' freedom. They're the ones who prayed in the trenches and suffered in the POW camps. They gave their lives so that we could be here today. You and I are blessed to be born the heirs of freedom.
This is my war cry for 2012. You need to join me in this war against the institutional left. This is not your mother's Democratic Party. Duh. Duh. John Podesta, George Soros. This is not your mother's Democratic Party either.
He had this ongoing platform, baffled me for a long time, and right after Obama was inaugurated, Newt Gingrich was everywhere. He was the official spokesperson for the Obama critics. He has no base. He has no real responsibility.
The most radical president in American history has now thrown down the gauntlet to the American people. He has said, I run a machine, I own Washington, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now that's where we are.
Everything has changed. Everything has changed in the last few years. Conservatives used to take it, and we're not taking it anymore.
None of the endorsements that Romney has picked up have been a thing.
I think Jeb Bush's attitude was, look, these endorsements are overstated.
Want the Congress back in total, House and Senate. They think maybe they can stop Obama that way. But more importantly, they're in charge of the money. If they get the committee chairmanships.
If we'll recruit at every level, if we'll work as hard as we can from now to Election Day, not giving up a single day, when we win control of the House and Senate this fall, stage one of the end of Obamaism will be a new Republican Congress in January that simply refuses to fund any of the radical efforts.
About this movement within the Republican Party and the Tea Party movement to sort of refashion conservatism. And I will vocally and publicly oppose it.
The videos are going to come out. The narrative is going to come out that Barack Obama met a bunch of silver ponytails back in the 1980s, like Bill and Bernadine Dorn, who, equally radical, said one day, we're going to have the presidency, and the rest of us slept while they plotted and they plotted and they plotted, and they oversaw hundreds of millions of dollars in the Annenberg Challenge, and they had real money from real capitalists who gave it on to their children and their children's children, and then they become communists. We got to work on that. We got to work.
He'll probably have another tough confirmation vote 4 years from now if he decides to be re-upped, because he's going to have to rein back the excessive money supply which he's built in order to hold inflation down, and that's going to be tough, and politicians never like that. So tough times there. And with regards to back to the bank tax, if you will, at the same time the president is saying to the banks, hey, you guys, you ought to be lending more money, then he's also saying we're now going to tax you some more. These guys don't know which end is up. The confusion, the lack of direction that's being sent by this administration is making it more difficult for money to be available in the private sector. That's got to get resolved.
4 years from now, you could be the president doing that, right?
Well, only if I run.
Fortunately, in the year 2004, the radical left basically did a coup d'etat of the Democratic Party and basically kicked a person that 4 years before was called the standard bearer of decency in the Democratic Party, and that was Joe Lieberman. That was over. That was the end of the Democratic Party, and after the 2010 election cycle, DLC went under. It's over. There's no such thing as a moderate Democrat. And so what do we get now in Barack Obama?
My view is this is a liberal Democrat like some other liberal Democrats I've dealt with during my career that believes big government, higher taxes, with government guiding people's lives is the best way to go. I saw it in my own state with Mike Dukakis as our governor for a while. I've seen people like that. Mm-hmm. And you know, people can call them different names. I'm probably not going to throw on all the possible names you could come up with, but I'm going to nail them for what they are. Liberal Democrats.
Barack Obama is a radical. We should not be afraid to say that. Okay?
None of the endorsements that Romney has picked up have been a thing.
Why are they going to Governor Romney's camp? And
some suggest that the fact that Bain Capital owns a major stake in Clear Channel that is on Sean's network, that maybe there's a correlation.
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
Romney wasn't exactly fair in lodging that, because by saying disgrace, you're basically implying corruption. It wasn't corruption that led to the speaker to leave.
Where Newt Gingrich won by 15 points, and now the eve of the Florida primary, it looks like he's going to lose by 15 points. What the hell happened?
Well, you know, I flew down here the day after that South Carolina primary thinking Newt would transfer all that energy down here, and it didn't take me long to figure out what the Romney camp was up to. They were rushing the quarterback. And when I turned on the local TV newscast on Monday night, I counted 8 ads by both of them combined. 6 of them were Romney ads attacking Gingrich, and only 2 by Gingrich attacking Romney. Then on Monday night, that first debate, Gingrich just kind of phoned it in, and then we could tell that Romney was going on the attack. They're conducting psychological warfare, I'd say, against him.
Well, so you think mainly it is the money, that 4-to-1 advantage in the super PACs?
That money means a lot in Florida. I grew up here. I've covered campaigns many years, and often the money talks and walks in Florida.
Romney wasn't exactly fair in lodging that, because by saying disgrace, you're basically implying corruption. It wasn't corruption that led to the speaker to leave.
But that's really just dishonest.
None of the endorsements that Romney has picked up have been a thing.
But more importantly, they're in charge of the money.
But that's really just dishonest.
You'll have an extremist conservative, be it Gingrich or Santorum, in which case I think it would make a big difference which of the two comes in. If it's between Obama and Romney, there isn't all that much difference, except for the crowd that they bring with them.
The conservative movement is not going to sit by and let a Massachusetts liberal who's pro-abortion, pro-gun control, pro-tax increase, pro-gay rights, whose Romney Care in 2 articles in the last 24 hours were described as the equivalent of Obamacare, and who George Soros says is just fine. He'd be happy with either Obama or Romney because they're both the establishment. That's George Soros. The conservative movement isn't going to sit back and say, oh yes, let's let Wall Street and Goldman Sachs and Mitt Romney buy the election. So you're going to see a real grassroots fight. It'll be people power versus Goldman Sachs and Mitt Romney.
wasn't corruption that led to the speaker to leave.
I think this whole populist message, which the Obama administration is pursuing, is unhealthy for the economy. It's certainly, populism has never built an economy, never built a strong nation.
I think there should be a vigorous debate, but I think the debate ought to be on issues, on differences between the candidates on various issues, on differences in how they would act as president, on various program differences and what's going on now. Those are the things that ought to be debated so people can understand what the views of the various candidates are. But it should not be a slugfest with personal attacks, with exaggerations of people's past conduct and those kinds of things which tend to harm them personally, which assassinate their character, those kinds of things. I think that's a big mistake, particularly when what they are doing really is abandoning what they ought to be doing, which is looking at the potential opponent, the sitting president.
I'm not concerned about the very poor.
But more importantly, they're in charge of the money.
They're conducting psychological warfare, I'd say.
For me, I'm willing to trade money for policy if eventually we can get the money.
Because this happened with the Republican establishment in 2008 with John McCain. No one wanted him. He was a stinky candidate. We held our nose. And when he picked Sarah Palin, we said, okay, maybe he can win. This time, I can tell you, I've talked to many of my constituents that support Newt, and they know Romney cannot win because he looks too much like Obama. And as a matter of fact, we call him old Romney. He's just a twin version of Obama.
Largely is an attack on Newt because they're afraid he might win. And the Republican establishment is wired into Romney. That's what they had their heart set on. They had their heart set on Romney winning early. But they're frustrated because we talked earlier, Romney still got 65-70% of Republicans that say no.
There's a real issue with whether he can beat President Obama.
Well, I think there is an issue on the flip-flops as it relates to trust.
I think Americans all over this nation are shaken by the betrayal of the public trust.
I don't know that he can go on to beat President Obama.
Mr. Romney is not a conservative. And by continuing to allow candidates like Mitt Romney, John McCain, and Bob Dole to claim the moniker conservative when their past voting records and/or policies were moderate at best, and even then left-leaning, then we allow the definition of what it means to be a conservative to become watered down and muddied.
But it's another example of the establishment piling on. And it seems the more that the establishment piles on, Dole, McCain, and all the rest, nobody cares. Nobody cares about this.
This is the hard left. I thought when I graduated from college in 1991, I thought that ponytail that I left in my humanities class, that silver ponytail, was just going to retire in the shady acres of academia and go on. I had no idea that these people were absolutely serious about the malarkey that they were teaching me, the post-structuralist, politically correct garbage. Unfortunately, in the year 2004, the radical left basically did a coup d'etat of the Democratic Party.
And therefore, 2006 and 2008 has a consequence. The consequence is Obama, Pelosi, and Reid.
Will evangelical Christians be disgusted by what happened on Capitol Hill?
The mantra, anyone but Obama, is wrong and misguided and is used by the establishment to get us to fall in line. As a conservative Christian and one who was a county director with Christian Coalition back in the 1990s, I know we have one of the largest voting blocs in the Republican Party. And yet every election cycle, the establishment pursues us with the intensity of a lovesick high school boy who wants to take the head cheerleader to the prom. But once the prom is over, they never return our calls. Seriously, folks, since we have hitched our wagon to their team of horses in the 1980s, what have we achieved? Lower taxes? Less spending? A smaller government? What about abortion? Any progress on any of these issues? Anything? Or have we actually gone backwards?
I don't care who our candidate is, and I haven't since the beginning of this. I haven't. Ask not what the candidate can do for you. Ask what you can do for the candidate. And that's what the Tea Party is. We are there to confront them on behalf of our candidate. I will march behind whoever our candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. There are two paths. There are two paths. One is America, and the other one is Occupy. One is America, the other one is Occupy.
First of all, let's keep in mind who Saul Alinsky was and how he directly influenced Barack Obama. Saul Alinsky wrote Rules for Radicals in '71 and dedicated it to Lucifer.
What we need is a complete and total break from the current establishment. And if that means voting for a third-party candidate or staying home and not voting at all, then so be it.
And when I walk through CPAC, or I travel the United States to meet people in the Tea Party who care, black, white, gay, and straight, anyone that's willing to stand next to me to fight the progressive left, I will be in that bunker. And if you're not in that bunker because you're not satisfied with this candidate, more than shame on you, you're on the other side.
I think the whole Occupy Wall Street movement was orchestrated to provide President Obama with a major campaign theme, which is income inequality. 1% versus the 99%. Mitt Romney certainly fits the 1%. So they're going to do everything they can, now that they have this backdrop, to paint him as this evil, rich, capitalist dude. He's the 1%. He's not on your side. And now that Obama has all of this ammunition to go against him, and honestly, I think all along they believed that Romney was going to be the Republican nominee, which is why they set it up this way. Yeah, I think Romney needs to be very smart about this bill, and he needs to get out there and preempt it by doing one thing, and that's not getting into the weeds about Bain and the rest. It's to be out there making the moral case for free market capitalism.
I'm not concerned about the very poor. We have a safety net there. If it needs a repair, I'll fix it. I'm not concerned about the very rich. They're doing just fine. I'm concerned about the very heart of America, the 90-95% of Americans who right now are struggling, and I'll continue to take that message across the nation.
I'll answer you very directly. There is no such thing in America as 99%. We are 100% Americans. We are all part of America. We're going to see a real grassroots fight. It'll be people power versus Goldman Sachs and Mitt Romney.
Dealing with recessions and depressions and studying how you avoid depressions, and he's done a pretty effective job keeping us from having a total financial meltdown. So he's done some things well, some things not so well. Net, you know, I'd rather have him.
He'll be a drag on the global economy. China will emerge as the motor replacing the U.S. consumer. And of course it's a smaller motor because the Chinese economy is much smaller. So the world economy will have less of a motor. So it will move forward slower than it has in the last 25 years. But China will be the engine driving it forward, and the U.S. will be actually a drag that's being pulled along through a gradual decline in the value of the dollar. So there would be a slow decline in the value of the dollar, a managed decline. And that would be the adjustment that it needs to be accomplished. Now, it could actually get out of hand.
In this country. For the Republican establishment, managing the decay is preferable to changing the trajectory, because changing the trajectory requires real fights and requires a real willingness to roll up sleeves and to actually take on the left. And that's why the Republican establishment, whether it's in 1996 or in 2008, can't win a presidential campaign because they don't have the toughness, they don't have the commitment, and they don't have the philosophy necessary to build a majority in this country.
Yet, when you take the time to look back at his record in the House,
Newt actually managed to get the Republican Party to do their job for 4 years, whereas no other Republican leader in the House or the Congress since then has seemed to have been able to get people's butts out of the chair and have them do the job they were elected to do. Do you think that that could also be a reason why these Republican members of the House and the Senate are opposing Gingrich, because they're scared they're going to have to get up and do their job or leave?
I agree with you. Not only are they afraid that they're going to have to do their job, but Newt will cut out all this pork barrel spending, all of the things that they take back to their states. That can't be anymore. We've got to trim the budget. They know it, and they don't want Newt in there because he will put the knife, he will sliver off everything that is not a necessity, and this is what we need.
We're watching you to play the race card, MSNBC.
2010, when he helped us fight the health care bill.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Newt supporters, regardless of what the results are in the Florida primary, will fight to support him getting the nomination?
Yes, we will go forward. We will take this all the way to the Tampa convention. We are convinced he is the man for this time.
And for me, I'm willing to trade money for policy if eventually we can get the money.
I think that could be a very compromising situation where people naturally may do things that may not be in the interest of the mission because of other types of emotions that are involved, and I think that's probably not in the best interest of men, women, or the mission.
Sounds critical of it. What's your comment about what the senator said?
You know, I agree with many of the things that Rick Santorum says, but when I heard this, I really just wanted to go kick him in the jimmy.
Kick him in the jimmy.
Yeah, he's totally out of touch. I mean, completely out of touch. These are the types of arguments we heard 20, 25 years ago as to why women couldn't be fighter pilots. And it's an insult to the men and women who are serving overseas, putting their lives on the line, and focusing on the mission right now.
I will not call him the knuckle-dragging Neanderthal that perhaps others would want to call him. I'll let his wife call him that instead.
I'll just give you a couple more. We're going to put together a package. You're going to see this is what a serious conservative president is like, who is bold and is prepared to change Washington despite the screams of the establishment in both parties. So a couple more steps. We will, on that day, sign an executive order that will instruct the State Department that day to open the embassy in Jerusalem and recognize Israel. I'll give you just two more examples. I will sign that day an executive order reinstating Ronald Reagan's Mexico City policy. No U.S. money will go anywhere in the world to pay for abortion, period. And finally, many of you may have noticed that the Obama administration has declared war on the Catholic Church and other religious institutions. I want you to know that on the very first day, I will sign an executive order repealing every anti-religious act of the Obama administration as of that moment. The reason I'm comfortable telling you all this is I have been studying what America needs to do since the fall of 1958, when my dad was stationed in Europe in the Army. I have been working at what we need to do as Congressman, Speaker in the private sector. I believe it is possible to get this country back on track. My commitment is to unleash the spirit of the American people, to find new and innovative and positive things, to do them 7 days a week, to do them relentlessly, to do them without stop, to make sure that we have fundamentally gotten America back on the right track. And I pledge to each and every one of you personally, if you will reach out across the country, if you'll use Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and phone calls and even visits, if you will tell all of your friends in the other 46 states that there is a chance to nominate a conservative who knows what he's doing, who has done it before, and who has the courage and the determination to get it done. I promise you that if I become your president, I pledge to you my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. This is about America. Thank you. Good luck and God bless you.